Neil Gaiman has been accused of SA by 8 separate women in an article that was posted to Vulture yesterday. The manipulation and coercion that he used, that was detailed in this article, would be enough to cover from a cult perspective on its own. But Neil also has deep ties to Scientology. Neil was born to Scientology parents who studied Dianetics almost since its inception. They were Scientologists since 1956. And in the mid to late 60s, they actually quit their jobs and moved to Scientology's base in England. It's suspected that his most recent novel, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, was written loosely based on or indirectly based on what like terrors he experienced as a child raised in Scientology. Were promoted to the Guardian's office in Scientology, which is the same department that was later rebranded to the Office of Special Affairs. And this is the part of Scientology that handles its legal cases and PR and its like dirty tricks department, I think is sometimes what they refer to it as. This is the same people that do fair game and order private investigators to utterly destroy anyone who says anything negative about Scientology. This is also the department or organization that Mike Rinder, who sadly recently passed away of cancer, was the head of for a. Now, Neil's parents would have worked for the Guardian's office well before Mike Rinder was that high up in Scientology. They worked there when L. Ron Hubbard was still leading and running and everything and alive and of a sane mind. And when he was banned from England and Scientology was banned from England, or at least they warned people that practicing Scientology was dangerous, and L. Ron Hubbard took to his fleet of ships and started sailing around the oceans for a while because no country wanted him anywhere near them to spread Scientology and Dianetics. Because Neil's parents were so loyal to L. Ron Hubbard in the 80s, when L. Ron Hubbard died and David Miscavige took over, they were demoted, and his dad was even labeled a suppressive person. And Scientology accused him of having inappropriate sexual thoughts about women and children, I believe. Neil also worked for Scientology and became an auditor, which is kind of like a counselor for Scientology. Those are the people on the other side of Scientology's e-meter, that thing that you've probably seen in regards to Scientology where they hold the cans, this thing called the cans, and there's like a needle that goes back and forth. These are also the sessions where Scientology keeps very in depth records on people and on anything they've ever said during auditing sessions, whether true or not. Neil claims to have stopped working for Scientology in the 90s and stopped believing in Scientology altogether by the early 2000s. But his parents kind of were known as Scientology royalty for a long time until David Miscavige took over, and it was deeply embedded in the way that he was raised. And even after he publicly claims to have left, he maintained some ties to Scientology and possibly even still gave some money to Scientology. Mike Rinder wrote a blog post about Neil Gaiman in 2023 and talked about how he wasn't super convinced that Neil had nothing to do with Scientology anymore. He said, according to public records, he was a shareholder in the family firm G&G Foods, which provided supplements for Scientology, their Narcanon programs, and their controversial detox practices. And then he transferred approximately 250,000 shares to Scientologist shareholders in 2013, well after he said he didn't believe in it anymore and had nothing to do with it. And then there was like a weird Scientology thing with his production company. On websites and in interviews, it says that his production company was founded in 2016. But according to the company's registration, it was founded with his ex wife, who is still a devout and practicing Scientologist, back in 2000. At least as of 2023, the company was still registered to a Scientologist P.O. box in Wisconsin. I actually never knew that Neil Gaiman had these deep Scientology ties and was raised in Scientology at all. People are basically just saying that he is another predator produced by being raised in Scientology, similar to Danny Masterson. And some people are referring to Paul Haggis being a Scientologist predator as well, even though he also no longer believes in Scientology or practices. Article published about this is behind a paywall and it's called There Is No Safe Word, but it is a good read. I highly recommend you do get it if you can. Other publications are covering this in depth, so you can just Google Neil Diamond allegations not Neil Diamond, Neil Gaiman allegations and find so many more details than I can really talk about in a short. And even though Mike Rinder has so sadly passed away, his blog will remain archived. So you can always go back through and see all the hard work he put into exposing Scientology throughout many years. I hope the women that he's harmed are able to find the healing and justice they deserve.